Ooh! Greetings friends, and welcome to the tips and tricks on how to improve your logic in Dreams. In this video I'm going to show you how to make your logic lighter on gameplay thermo, more intuitive, easier to follow, and of course neater. In order to demonstrate, or rather illustrate this tutorial, I'm going to be using some tower nodes from my tower defense game, Grove Zero Tower Defense. This is an older version of my logic, and as you can see here, it's crazy, it's messy, there's all sorts of stuff going on here. This is my newer version, and you can see this one is a lot neater, it's a lot more intuitive, you can see where things go, you can follow it more easily, you can make changes, and not only that, this uses about 2% gameplay thermo, while this uses about 1%. Alrighty friends, I'm going to show you how I did it. Step 1. Figure out what exact percentage of gameplay thermo your logic uses. So, generally when we copy a piece of logic, we'll get a general idea of how much percentage it uses up, but we want to find a bit more of a more specific one. So what we're going to do is, we're going to delete this dude, we're going to delete this guy, and we're just going to make a whole bunch of clones of this. And we're going to make as many clones as we can, literally until the game says, sorry mate, you can't make any more clones, or I'm going to explode. Okay, cool. This might be different for PlayStation 5 as opposed to PS4 people, but we're going to make as many as we can. Alrighty. So now I have 47 little blocks over here. In order to select them all, I press X twice, so I double tap X, and I can select everything that's going on here. Alrighty. Now, in order to figure out how much gameplay thermo this uses, we've got here about 100% gameplay thermo is being used. We'll go 100 divided by 47, and then we'll get 2,127, etc., percent. That gives us a much more accurate idea of how much gameplay thermo is being used by each and every one of these particular dudes. Step number 2. Use wireless transmitters and receivers. If you want to find them, go into Gadgets, Sensors and Input. The transmitter looks like a little cell phone tower. The receiver looks like a little Wi-Fi symbol. What's great about these gadgets is it reduces the total number of wires, and another thing is that it just makes your microchips look a lot better. As you can see here, this one has 1 million outputs, and it's just the microchips become super long, and there's all sorts of stuff going in and out, and they just look totally crazy. If you look here, you'll notice that all the microchips are actually self-contained. So originally, if I wanted to make a connection between this microchip and something in this microchip, I'd connect a wire to them, and then you'd kind of get things that are super huge, and you get this kind of idea. If you want to reduce the wires and the size of your microchips, you'll just add in some transmitters. And you'll add a transmitter here, and if you want to make a connection between this one and say that one, you'll just put a receiver over here. You'll go into it, you'll change the particular thing that you need to change, and then you'll go into, for example, your zone size, and you'll change it to the particular shape you want. But I like to put it on scene, just so that it works for that particular thing, and it'll work whenever this button is pressed, or whenever that sort of particular transmitter is transmitted. Alrighty. Step number 3, organize your wires. Now I know you're going to be upset with me because this is the most tedious step, but if you don't do it, you'll get what's going on here, and it's a huge mess. You can't tell what's going on. It's also terrifying because if I delete this, how many wires are actually going to go away? How many things is this connected to? I can't actually tell. Like, how many things is this guy connected to? It's just absolute madness. If we look at my new logic, we'll see that I've got a lot of these kind of right-angled wires. It's a lot easier to follow. I know that I go here, then I go here, then I go along here. It creates a nice little path for the eye to follow, and also your brain, because it's just quite neat and intuitive. The way to do this is, you'll see there's these little white baubles all the way along here. If I go over the wire so that it's highlighted and I press X, I'll create a wire node, what's called a wire node, and I can just create a crazy shape. I can go all the way over here. If I want to be like, okay, cool, I want to do this, you know what I mean? And it has this sort of built-in grid, so the way that you do it is it actually kind of lines up nicely, and it's not too tricky. The only thing is, it is a little bit tedious, it does take quite a bit of time, but ultimately it's for the best. Step number 4, color code your keyframes and microchips. So if we take a look here, we can't actually tell immediately what each of these microchips are relating to. We can name all these various things and we can see, okay, cool, it builds this kind of tower and it builds that sort of a thing. You can read it, but it's a lot quicker and easier if you can just tell the color and you can be like, okay, cool, this color means this thing and I can just get along with it. It's the same thing with keyframes. Keyframes are often very difficult to understand because unless you made the keyframe yourself, or even if you did a long time ago, you can't remember all the various things that it relates to, and you might have to go over it and be like, oh, what does this relate to again? So one step for that is actually to rename your keyframes and your microchips accordingly, but even better than that is actually color coding them. So for example, if we go into my tower is built little microchip, all the keyframes that are green relate to a version of the arrow tower. So this is the level 1 arrow tower, the level 2 arrow tower, and then the sort of arrow tower when it's in a different mode. But you don't have to worry about that. Essentially, by color coding, I can just tell all these various things. Okay, cool, you know, these menus are related to these particular colors, and so on and so forth. It just makes it easier to understand, and at a glance, you can tell where you are and what you're dealing with. Whereas at a glance of this, tears start falling from your eyes. Thank you so much for joining me for these tips and tricks, friends. I hope you found it useful. I hope you found it helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll catch you on the flip-flop. Peace out.